Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a channel map. It's been a while since I've released one of these, and in 2020 and going forward, they will be a little bit different. This is indeed the first proper channel map, in my opinion, and as part of my New Year's plans, I wanted to be more organized and more focused on the present. This is probably a response to the fact that I've been releasing discipline-oriented content, podcast content, be it the Big Boy Tables with Mesk or some of the Dad Cause that I've released thus far. And I've talked about being present. I've talked about sort of getting into a meditative state where you're constantly aware of what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing and all that stuff. So without getting too into the weeds about that, that's basically the motivation for creating or relaunching the channel map series. And we will be sort of explaining exactly what my plans are for the coming month. And then a little bit after that, I'll go into the recap of the previous month, how I feel about what we did, what we could have done better, etc., etc., etc. And eventually I'll go into depth about the things that I'm trying to do, the things that I am planning on doing, the things that I will be doing in the next month, and what made me put that on the list. So we've got a big list to give you guys. This is also in the description of the video. So if you're just here for the list, you just want to know what's on the agenda, you just want to know what I'm going to be doing next month, well, just read the description or fast forward a little bit and then bye. That is basically it. So I will be talking about predictions for how long things are going to take and when in the month I will be doing them. So if you're more interested in like the actual nitpicky like details, fine details, stay tuned for a little bit longer and we'll talk about that. So without further ado, let's get into the list. So for Brood War, we got a lot of things on the Brood War list. Almost all of the things on this list are Brood War things. And of course, the first one is to finish up development of Todborne. After that, I will be working on some assets for iquare. This ranges from unit graphics, converting them from Outlive and other similar RTS games into StarCraft-ready formats and generating shadows for them, courtesy of Darkened Fantasies, big man. And also making some tiles for iquare. Now, obviously, he scratched my back with Todborne and Hydra and everything else that I've ever worked on in the past year and a half. So I'll scratch his back, of course, and this is one way where I can help and contribute towards his work. So I am, of course, going to take this opportunity and thank him for all of his hard work with my stuff. Moving on, another person that I owe a great deal to is Darkened Fantasies, the aforementioned art man, and I am collaborating with him on a map. More on that in a little bit, if you so are so inclined to listen. And yeah, so I'm going to be working on that. That's not going to be streamed, but I will be working on that throughout the month of February. I will also be releasing a Stormborne update by the end of the month. I hope to have most of that work done by the first week, but again, more on the details later on. Just suffice it to say, I will be releasing an update for that, so if you liked the concept of some of the stuff that I was doing, or you actually liked the end result and you just want to see an even better version of that, stay tuned. There will be some Stormborne streams. There's already some planned. Fairly early in February, we'll be getting to that. Also, as I announced a week ago almost now, a couple days ago, Mapcrap Full Toilet, Crap from the Heart, that is indeed impending, and so I will be working on my submission for that as time continues. We will see exactly what I feel like doing. I have a couple of ideas, but I have not allowed myself to think too fully on them until the start of the event, and more importantly, until Todborne is taken care of. So who knows when I will actually begin that. I will also be updating Hydra VZerg 01 and hopefully some other Hydra maps, but at the very least, I would like to ship an update for that. That is definitely in the cards for February, so that will probably be after Stormborne, but stay tuned for some streams of that. And of course, I will be also updating the new game state in general. I think iquare has some plans to continue development for the new game state, so in addition to VZerg 01 receiving some updates, maybe there'll be some new tech available, or maybe we'll just wait until later. And lastly on this list is Inconsummate 2.0. I will hope to start the development at the end of, or by the end of this month. I don't think that we will get to it until like maybe the last week of February at the earliest because of all of the other things on this list, but that is indeed in the cards as well. And even if I don't end up doing any streams of it, I don't start the streamed development, the public development of that project, I will have started something, some organizational stuff, figured out some folder structure and all the other stuff that I went over back in 2018 when I released my Brood War pipeline video. Basically, some sort of updated version of that will have been begun by the end of this coming month. So that is that for Brood War. Now for video plans, really the only Let's Play type stream content that you're going to see is Deus Ex. I'm going to be mostly focusing on that. If I absolutely have to take a break, I may pivot to something else, because I have heard that that game is quite terrible and quite intolerable, but we shall see. I obviously survived Half-Life, so I feel like I can survive this one as well, but who knows. And then after that, I just wanted to give a quick reminder that I do indeed work for Peaker's Advantage still, apparently, and so I'll be waiting for them to give me the call. They said that they were going to be restarting content in 2020, and I think a week or two ago I was told that in a day I would have some dates, but that never fomented. So I don't know exactly when things are going to go down, but obviously with my work schedule and my other stuff that I've got planned for this month, my time is extremely precious, and so I will not be able to make it to any actual live events unless I get enough of a sort of a heads up in that sense. So again, more on that later on, but that may foment into the work that I end up doing this month, which obviously won't really impact this channel that much. I mean, it's going to take some time away from other things, but it's not going to be something that you see on this channel. It's just going to be something else that I might be doing. So that's more of like a maybe. I don't really know what's going to happen with that. I assume there will be something, at least some confirmation by the end of February, whether or not I am still working with them or whether or not they're doing any content at all. But presumably we are going to be doing some content. So I guess if you were into that and you happen to be like there's some crossover between them and my channel, then maybe that's good news for you. I don't know. Otherwise, next month, not February, but March, I will be working on the Half-Life video essays. I will also be picking up the 2018 and 2019 compilation, the greatest hits of the last 2 years, obviously not counting the little bit of 2020 that we've experienced so far, as there hasn't really been that much of an experience besides me playing Mapcrap stuff, which maybe there's some stuff you can mine in there, as well as, of course, Fraud Nights. So those two things, the video essays and the compilation video, will continue development, and I will be... I'm setting aside time for sure to work on them in March. I'm also going to be setting aside time to learn programming. That is another thing. So no real grand aspirations, but at some point I'll be learning some programming. So stay tuned for that. So that ends the list. Of course, you already read ahead in the description of me, if that was all you were here for. So thanks for hanging, and thanks for your continued support throughout 2020. Bye. So if you are still here and you're still interested in what I have to say, let's talk a little bit about January. So January was a month where I spent the entire thing, barring a single like 3 or 4 day detour onto Mapcrap. The whole month was spent on Todborne, and I was still able to continue the streak of mod streams despite the feeling of burnout creeping in. We came away with a functional first map, which has not yet been publicly released as of the recording of this video, but will be hopefully before the end of January, but presumably early February at the absolute latest. And I actually did have a good time with it. I had a good time experiencing the MOBA stuff. It's actually the only micro map so far, despite how rushed and hobbled it has been. It's the only micro experience in an RTS context that I've played where I've actually had to have like over 100 APM. So, beyond actual MOBAs, of course. So I guess hats off in that sense. And obviously wouldn't be possible without iquare and DF, the aforementioned manly men. I also think that I continued to adapt well to the work-life balance that I've recently started since, I guess, mid-December of 2019. And of course, I'm still, I guess, in some ways adjusting to the fact that I live with people and live around people and can no longer shout at the top of my lungs all the time. I have to, actually section off time where I know I'm going to be alone and I know the neighbors aren't going to be upset that I'm yelling because I'm doing some voice acting, or I'm doing some streaming where I'm getting particularly animated, or any sort of thing like that. So I'm continuing to adapt to that. I'm also continuing to adapt my sleep schedule, so I feel like that was good. We also were able to launch DadCaw this month. I think it was this month. Maybe it was like late 2019. I honestly don't remember when the first one came out, but I'm pretty sure it was 2020. And I wanted to just, acknowledge the fact that DadCaw is now a regular thing, once a week, and that I've been able to record 3 Big Boy Stables with Mask, and that's 3, of course, magic number, in the month of January. Or is it 4 now? I actually don't remember. Maybe we just made it 4 with the last one. But I think it was like 39, 40, 41, or maybe it was 40, 41, 42. Either way, we recorded 3 or 4 now, I don't remember, podcasts. So that was good. Feeling pretty good about the spoken word content in general, even though I didn't do any by designs. Laying the seeds for returning to that series with DadCaw, because that sort of makes me think about stuff that I would want to explain better and in a more concerted fashion than I do with the DadCaw stuff. So I'm happy about that. Eventually I will get back to that. But of course, no plans. Otherwise, it would have been on the list. I did not stream or record any gameplay, however, besides Fraud Night and the third episode of Season 3 of Mapcrap, because 3. So that is an area where we really could have probably found some improvement if my time management with Todborne had been better. But I'm not really super broken up about the fact that we didn't end up doing that. It's just one of those things where I do recognize that some people are interested in that content, and I was not able to deliver that this month. So that's one of the reasons why I put Deus Ex on the list for February. Is I could have just left it off and said we're just going to continue focusing entirely on Brood War stuff. And there still would have been a plethora of different content to choose from. It's just all would have been Brood War mod streams of various projects. But I decided I would make it an effort to at least explore Deus Ex. Maybe I don't even finish it because it's that bad, but presumably I will finish it. And even if I don't, there'll still be like a stream or two that you get to experience the game with me. And hopefully that is worth your viewing time. I have a feeling it'll be quite insane. And so at least you have something to look forward to if that was all you were really interested in and you didn't get any of that beyond the occasional Mapcrap or Fraud Night playthroughs and stuff like that. At the very least, there's that. So now you have something in writing, something in video form where I have planned and promised this content. Whereas obviously I didn't do any of the sort in January. Maybe I did and I forgot, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. So, and that is essentially the recap of the past month. Now it's time to go a little bit more in depth to the planned content that's on the list that I just recapped a little bit earlier. So, obviously the first thing that I mentioned was Todborne. Development is just about done, at least for the first map and the mod. We're still waiting on 3 classes from iquare and the functionality of one of the upgrades to be completed. But that last one I don't know if is going to happen at all. And the first 3 I assume will happen, but I don't have an ETA on. I'm certainly not going to ask him to continue working day in and day out on Todborne when at this point we're already past the due date for the project, right? But for sure, whenever iquare feels like doing it, it would be a welcome addition to the project. I would be able to get some stuff done and complete that, and then maybe my brother can give it another spin once the rough edges are sanded off. But at least we had a playable thing for his birthday, which was the day that this is being recorded, actually, the 30th of January. So there is that. He's turned 16. He's now old enough to play a map where anime and fanfiction destroy police and void fucks everything. So that's cool. I think legally, anyway, that's legal, right? So yeah, that's cool. Let's see. Oh, yes. So the rest of the development of Todborne is just pretty much going to be me polishing off the 2 maps that are planned to accompany the mod, as well as the mod itself, but there's not really that much polish that's left for the mod. I also have to fully implement and rebalance, or at least tweak the balance of some of the units that aren't going to be seen until the second mission, finish the AI for the second mission, finish the triggers for the second mission, that sort of stuff. So what you're probably going to see is an update. Like, obviously, you're going to see a release of the first map, and there's going to be one singularly large update that will ship the second map, fix some bugs in the first map and the mod, and maybe then you'll see some smaller tweaks here and there as bug reports come in, or as I discover things, or as maybe like there's some new art assets that DF comes up with, or new code that iquare comes up with, or some other such report that is required to be fixed. And throughout the month of February, I will continue to like whittle away at that sort of stuff. I'll create like a list of things that should be done at some point. Maybe there'll be like some excess, custom tiles that I didn't end up shipping and would like to actually add. And so maybe that could be like one of those small things that I do in like 10 minutes or whatever. So that's the main plan, is like before the first week of February is over, I hope to be done with that large update that ships the second map and all of the other things. And then throughout the month, hopefully we end up getting like generic updates that fix up some small issues here and there. And then I forget about it for another year. So like I said, any significant time investment hopefully is done by the first week. That's what I'm hoping for. But who knows, really? You never can fully plan for this stuff. It's just one of those things that I'm making a commitment to. Like that's my best effort. Like that's my goal. And so we'll see how well I meet that goal by the end of the first week of February. And so, of course, the second item on the list was iquare's assets. These were, like I said, mostly tiles and ports from Outlive. There's also a port from Aatrox at some point that I recolored an asset and was going to port it, but I never finished it. So there's stuff like that. I think that's the Reconnoiter asset. And so at some point I was going to finish that. I think UED Commander was going to use it too. And perhaps I would use it as a placeholder or a unit in like some more comedic project or something where the quality of the art doesn't really matter as much to me. But either way, it would be another asset for people to use. So of course, I don't mind doing it. It's just a matter of finding time to do it. And so these will be like stuff that I work on every now and again for like an hour or two here and there on streams. And the tiles are probably the most time-consuming aspect. Really, it depends on the unit graphic in question, but at the very least, you have a unit graphic that you can use. Like, the tiles are much more, like, perhaps niche in some cases, where you can really only use it for, like, one project or one in one tile set, and so on and so forth. So either way, most of the desert stuff was already done, I think. So I'll have to go and look at the list that he gave me again and just cross-reference that with what I've already done. I may also decide to rebuild the tile set to get rid of the null tile bug. That's something that obviously is like super minutia, but basically the null tile wasn't actually a true null tile. And then I had to go through all of the tiles that I was making and change the color of the null tile from pure black, like 000, to some other off black color that fixed this problem. And it was just an asinine thing that I had to do. And so hopefully rebuilding the tile set will fix that, but it wouldn't, move any tiles around in theory. So like all the tiles would be persistent in the same places. That's my hope. So that's something that, maybe look at by the end of this month, but maybe not immediately. That last rebuilding the tile set thing. At the very least, I'll try to get the outlive ports taken care of by the first week. So in general, I imagine this is something that he's going to ask me for, and I'll be able to provide throughout the entire year. But a decided push is going to be made in February to get most of his requests taken care of, at least the ones that he has right now. And then as he comes up with new ones, we'll see what we can do. And the third item, because 3F, DF, I'm collaborating with him to bring you guys a one-off map. It's pretty dumb, it's pretty fun, it's pretty XD. I'm not going to say any more about the particulars, but the map's outline has been more or less completed. There's some bits I've got to fill in here and there, and probably some custom tiles that both of us have to make and find places for and stuff like that. But the planning and the outline, those are mostly taken care of. So at some point, I've just got to bang out the AI, do some testing, and we got to finalize some of the tech tree stuff. And so I don't really know if it'll be released in February, but a decided push, just like with iquare stuff, a decided push is going to be happening in here. I think a more confident estimated arrival time for me would be like before Q1 of 2020 ends, so before the end of March. But when it's closer to being done, you'll hear more about it. And so I figured I would just throw that out there. Obviously, the Stormborne update was up next. So I dusted off Nemesis Stormborne with Kian, a.k.a. Dark Metzen. That was late this month of January. I was reminded of pretty much every fucking shortcoming possible, which is one of the reasons why I posted in the Nemesis Discord channel on my server, posted my considerations list for changes and asked for other people's information or takes or whatever. And I came up with a pretty decent list. The things that are most important are obviously the gameplay related things like the AI. That's going to be the first thing that I tackle, is like trying to get the AI up to par and make them, implement some of the stuff from the tech trees that iquare has after Stormborne implemented, and all that stuff. I'll also be rewriting the script in some way, like redrafting it at the very least, like tweaking lines here and there, trying to call out some of the longer bits of dialogue, and implementing something that Mesk actually talked about in one of the Big Boys tables, where we actually go through and I'm going to log whenever a player hears a certain transmission, and then just not play that transmission unless it's like an AI ally moving out or something. Like if it's an actual dialogue transmission from the map, that will get logged, and then on subsequent playthroughs will not be played. And the idea is, if the player wants to hear all of that dialogue again, they can go into their file and delete it, or maybe there'll be like some setting that we can have added to the actual game instead of it being a log file that or a bank file that they have to delete. But basically using bank data to track whether or not they've listened to this dialogue event yet. And if they have, then just turn it off. And that's like a safer way. That way you don't have to hear it over and over again if you do want to replay it, because it's meant to be replayable. And no matter how many times I rewrite the line to make it more distinct and to make it more concise, it's always going to be a chore to hear it over and over again. And that's one of the reasons why I would like to handle that and make that change. And also, one of the reasons why I would like to add more lines for the attacks and like moving out, attacking, defending. We actually can track defense now, which is great. Stuff like that is very important. And so just in general, being able to track that sort of thing, I think makes sense. And so trying to do all of that is what I'm mostly concerned about. Trying to implement a system that makes sense with regards to that, and adding more lines and doing more voice acting and doing better voice acting than I did before, which was all done in like with the time span of 2 days or something. In general, that's going to be what I aim to do. But the The more like polish oriented stuff, like the voice acting and the, adding more custom tiles and fixing up the decor, those things are going to be taken care of in due time, we'll say. And we'll see what happens with them. I think the more important thing is definitely the AI and bringing it up to par. So that's what I'm going to be basically challenging myself to do, checking out in very early February. So in a couple of days, presumably. Now, Mapcrap, of course, full toilet. In the middle of all these updates and these collaborations, I'm also trying to get work done on my Mapcrap submission, whatever it may be. And yeah, thankfully I have literally the entire month to finish this. So considering my list, I'll probably go for something very small. Some sort of relatively small scale, or, basically just what I would try to do in 3 days time for like the normal Mapcrap submissions. I might pick a similar kind of thing for this case, just not trying to impress anybody, not trying to really make use of all that time. It's just like, here's what I know I can do with a reasonable amount of time, and, just make a really tight map in essence. So hopefully that's something that I can manage given everything else that I'm attempting to do. Now, of course, Visorgo 1, I already mentioned. It's the last Brood War item on the list that will see any significant progress this coming month. First Zerg mission of Hydra among the ruins, aim on the ruins. I think it's likely to ship by the end of the month. At the very least, we'll see some market improvement in the map and in its balance and in its consistency of the AI belligerents. And as with Stormborne, I'll be updating the AI, tweaking the decor, maybe tweaking some map balance here and there. And of course, one of the other things that I should probably talk about at some point is making a formalized list in the modding wish list, basically, of what I can fix through what actually needs to be, versus what needs to be fixed on an engine level. So like, what is wrong with my technique? What can I change in my technique to fix some bugs that we're finding, versus what needs to just be overhauled on a code base level, presumably by iquare or Knave, and that sort of thing. So hopefully it's mostly stuff that I'm able to fix, but odds are there's a lot of shit that needs to be fixed on a code base level that has nothing to do with me. And, short of me going and learning Rust, which eventually I would like to do, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, short of me doing that, I'm kind of stuck. So eventually I'm going to have to, it seems. But that's okay. Now, with Inconsummate 2.0 being the actual last item on the Brood War list, this project has not, it hasn't seen much sunlight. We'll put it to you that way. It's been talked about mostly by me, and it's been talked about for about as long as the original Inconsummate has been released. Like, I'm trying to think, it was probably like a month or two after the original Inconsummate's release that I decided I would be releasing an update to it. It was going to be fairly large scale, but then I was like, well, I can revoice all the dialogue, and so I did that, and I was like, well, I can also just rewrite some dialogue and make it better, and then I can do like, just update the AI pretty significantly and maybe remake some maps here and there. And like, it just evolved, like feature crept into basically a full remake. And that's where it has been languishing for a while. But I will finally be starting public facing development of this project. And that'll be the tail end of February, like I said. Maybe we won't start streams until March, but at the very least, I'll talk about it and post in the channel and talk about like my plans and stuff. And we'll really sink our teeth into this project in March, in April, in May, and my only goal with regards to Inconsummate is to release by the end of the year, but otherwise nothing to report, just announcing the fact that I will be starting it, announcing an announcement, more or less. Now, Deus Ex, like I talked about, I may not survive this playthrough, but what the hell? I survived all of Half-Life, and its shitty remake. I'm a hard enough man, I figure anyway. We'll be kicking this playthrough off sometime in February, and I want to say it's probably like second week February, given my work schedule and all the other stuff that I'm doing, like my actual real life job schedule. The most I can commit to is 2 gameplay streams a week, which would be probably Tuesday and Wednesday, because those are the days that I don't work. I don't work Saturday either, but that's usually reserved for Fraud Night and podcasts. The only time I'd be able to do a third stream would be if Mesk was unavailable on a Saturday, and then like as a result of the opportunity opening up, maybe I would do that. I would also potentially just take that rest of that night off, because I've already at that point had a mod stream and fraud night, and then the third piece of video content didn't manifest. Okay, well, we'll just take the night off in that case. That's usually what happens anyway, but maybe I can really discipline myself into getting some work done. Also, it's going to be really hard to stay motivated to play this game, I think. Try not to poison the well before I get in there, but that's just my assumption. Anyway, it'll be around 1500 Eastern time when we are actually going to be doing these streams on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Presumably some Saturdays will be a little bit later after Fraud Night ends, because Fraud Night usually starts at 1500. So it'll be like 1800 or something like that. But we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, Mixplay will be on. So RimTech, I'll see you there. Now, like I talked about with the Peaker's Advantage stuff, some of you already know I work with them, and I am their podcast producer. I also do the live streaming and stuff like that. What you probably don't know is that they literally haven't done anything since late November of 2019. Now, like I said, that's apparently slated to change in 2020, presumably also in February specifically. So some of the time that I would otherwise spend playing Deus Ex or working on some of these projects will be spent with those guys cranking out esports entertainment. And that's, again, presumed. I'm making some assumptions here. But like I said earlier, I will talk a bit more about this when I have more news, and I will confirm whether or not this is actually happening. But I would throw it in here. There's some advance warning that this is likely going to happen. And maybe I will be made a fool and made to eat crow, as everybody keeps calling it. Just the idea that you would just change egg on face to crow on plate. Come on, man. Get out of here. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, the Half-Life video essays and the compilation video, those are things that I really did want to get work done sooner rather than later. But again, given the work schedule, given the Brood War list length for this month, given Mapcrap and all this other stuff, and given how stressful Todborne's development was, and the fact that I've recently moved and all these other legitimate excuses, but they are excuses, I am going to be pushing that back until March. And I don't really have any guarantee about this, but I would like to start writing the Half-Life essays, or at least blocking them out and putting out the bullet points and stuff like that sooner than the beginning of March. Like maybe halfway through February I can find some time to do that. But again, when I have more information, I will let you guys know. And that is it. So thanks for hanging out for this channel map. It's a little bit longer than what I imagine most of them will end up being, because for one, I had to explain what the purpose of it is, and for another, I had to go through a giant fucking list of things. Presumably not every month will be this busy, but we will see. Any questions that you may have about the content that I discussed here can be thrown in the comments, or you can @ me on my Discord server. Yeah, bye.